I need to tell him.
Do I hit this thing? There you go. All right, if you would, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. Mayor Milton is attending remotely. Is he on with us now, Chad?
No.
Oh, I hear him.
The one and only.
Oh, this is great. Okay, we're going to be very prompt and have a lot of fun tonight, so the mayor's out of town. Y'all ready? All right, let's see. Madam Clerk, will you do roll call?
LeBlanc,
Here.
Rodriguez, Howden,
Here.
Milton. Let the record show that Mayor Milton is attending remotely. Cooper,
Here.
Denham,
Here.
Fenton.
Here.
Your Honor, you have a quorum. And the first item is an impact analysis identifying effective strategies for facilitating versatile housing solutions and development opportunities, encouraging economic growth.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. In response to the growing demand for affordable workforce housing and changes in the hospitality industry, the proposal to convert hotels into apartment complexes has gained traction. This study session serves as a foundation for further discussions and decision-making regarding hotel conversions and housing opportunities. Our objective today is to identify effective strategies for facilitating versatile housing solutions and development opportunities that encourage economic growth. Some topics we will be covering in today's discussion are examine the intent of the entertainment district, understanding current housing needs specific to Branson, understanding financial implications, discussion and inclusion of stakeholders, opportunities for economic growth, discuss long-term and short-term solutions, and examine possible code amendments. With the recent lodging safety initiative, there's been an interest in repurposing motel hotels into multifamily dwellings. Most inquiries revolve around converting unlicensed, code-violating lodging establishments. Zoning complications in the entertainment district lack density regulations and have prompted requests for density bonuses across various zoning districts. Why are owners and developers showing such an interest in converting failing hotel motels into multifamily dwellings? There's no annual lodging establishment inspections, there's no lodging permit, there's no county health inspection, there's no state inspection, there's no lodging license, and there's no lodging tax. Branson currently has dimensional standards for multifamily in 5 districts: high-density residential, neighborhood commercial, mixed-use district, community commercial, and the downtown district. Those dimensional standards are 12 to 24 dwelling units per acre. Existing code does not provide dimensional standards for the entertainment district. Every other district allowing for multifamily provides dimensional standards, including density requirements. Most of you are familiar with the purpose of the entertainment district. If you're not familiar with it, we encourage you to read slide 9 of this PowerPoint. Multifamily conversion does not seem to align with the purpose of the entertainment district. A comprehensive housing study for Taney County was updated in 2023. This next slide showcases community insights, revealing a notable concentration of responses from the northern part of Taney County, with minimal input from the southern portion of Taney County. Staff recommends further research on housing in Branson and stakeholder assessment to prevent exceeding current capacity for growth. The housing study revealed strong support for stricter enforcement of property maintenance codes, with 82% strongly in favor. Additionally, 75% of respondents supported using public funds to address the removal of dilapidated housing. This map is a visual representation that highlights the entertainment district in purple. The community commercial area is in the red, and the brown is high-density residential. Additionally, the orange dots represent current lodging establishments along the 76 corridor, excluding those without a business license or those not in operation. Next, we have some examples of existing businesses that meet density requirements and some that do not meet density requirements, and how it impacts our city's resources. This property is located southwest of West 76 Country Boulevard. It is zoned high-density residential. The allowed density for that zone is 12 to 24 dwelling units per acre. They are at 15 dwelling units per acre. The amount of calls that were received on this property, CAD, which is the computer-aided dispatch, received 88 calls in 2023. Police received 49 and fire 33. This next slide is an example of a property that we currently have in Branson exceeding density requirements. This property is located just north of West 76 Country Boulevard. It's zoned community commercial. The allowed density is 12 to 24 dwelling units per acre. The existing density is 46.76 dwelling units per acre. If you note, the 2023 police report had CAD entries of 776. Police had 531. Fire had 174. There's a significant difference in the city resources being utilized at this property. In summary, there's a notable contrast in the utilization of city resources between businesses that comply with density requirements and those who do not, distinctly evident in the police calls. This observation underscores the importance of considering density regulations in planning and resource allocation strategies. Let's look at some tourist towns with similar demographic stars. This is the Wisconsin Dells. Multifamily is not allowed directly in the main tourist corridor. Pigeon Forge, Tennessee is addressing affordable housing and seasonal worker accommodation by offering on-site housing within businesses, including the Dollywood Housing Complex. These accommodations typically consist of dormitory-style units providing convenient living arrangements for employees. Gatlinburg, Tennessee. As you'll notice, multifamily dwellings are not allowed along the main corridor. When considering options for allowing family and multifamily development within the entertainment district, key factors to assess include traffic flow management, impact on property value, market saturation, capacity of fire and police services, direct impact on tax revenue, and adherence to development perimeters set by city regulations. Things to consider if we do not want to allow multifamily in the entertainment district. Explore offering density bonuses for conversions in adjacent districts like community commercial zones, possibly incentivizing mixed-use developments, and allowing retail developments below apartment complexes to provide essential services. You notice in these two pictures, there is retail under the apartment complex. It's important for us to define and draw distinctions between various types of multifamily developments. Existing code does not have distinction between various types of multifamily developments. Economic incentives to consider: providing financial assistance to remove dilapidated buildings that lack a valid business license, encourage new development with flat, buildable lots suitable for tourist-intensive businesses, increase property values by removing blighted buildings. These measures would aim to stimulate economic growth, attract investment, and improve the overall attractiveness of the city. To allow additional time to discuss options with stakeholders, the city has two options: a moratorium, which is the faster approach, or a special use permit. In order to avoid a knee-jerk reaction and potential overdevelopment of conversions within the entertainment district, establish a moratorium prohibiting conversions and multifamily development to allow the city to engage in further discussions with stakeholders to determine the best direction. This would not affect conversions and other multifamily development in other zoning districts that currently meet density requirements. To establish the moratorium, the resolution will need to be presented and approved with the Board of Aldermen. This option could go before the Board of Aldermen as early as February 27th. The second option is the special use permit. If we develop perimeters for multifamily development proposals in the entertainment district, applicants wishing to develop would need to go to the Planning Commission for approval or denial of the request. This also would not affect conversions and other multifamily development in other zoning districts that currently meet density requirements. Enacting a special use permit will be a change in code. This will require recommendation from the Planning Commission and approval of the Board of Aldermen. In closing, the Planning and Development team wants to acknowledge the rapid growth in our area, but also recognizes the need for code updates to support it. We welcome your feedback and are happy to answer any questions you may have. We also would like to encourage you to reach out to the Planning and Development Department offline with your questions and concerns. I have my staff here today, and we would like to answer any questions you have.
Do we want to get comments from the board, or go ahead, Kathy?
Thank you. Amanda, really nice job. Thank you so much. And you know, I'm always stressing with our directors to be concise and quick and fast, and I think Amanda really took that one to heart, because I was actually having a hard time reading the slide before it went off the screen. No, you did great. So thank you for taking my comments to heart. One thing I just want to kind of summarize what the approach has been here. Number one is moratorium tends to make people bristle, especially elected officials, and same with us as staff. We don't want to unnecessarily invoke moratorium. A moratorium is that since we've embarked on our safe lodging initiative, there have been some proprietors and owners who felt that a better route or a way to kind of maneuver through the system to allow them to keep earning money on their property would be to convert them into apartments instead of going by all of the lodging codes and requirements in order to have their business license kept intact or to even get one. So we've seen suddenly this influx of calls, and that's why we're having the meeting today. The thing that we're looking for from you all is comments on which direction you'd like us to go. So there's the moratorium question, if you'd like us to press the pause button so that we can engage stakeholders in a larger way, so we can make sure all voices are at the table and heard. I think that's probably a logical next step for us, but again, we want to make sure to bounce that off you all first. And the second thing is to realize that, yes, while there's the entertainment district that we do generally want to keep as tax producing in our entertainment district, I don't think anybody would really necessarily disagree with that, but we also have challenges with some of the people who have businesses in that district who need to provide workforce housing. So that's another nuance that we're looking to try and navigate too. We've had a couple of people come in to apply for opportunities that they've had an existing motel either behind or next door or nearby their facility. They want to, switch that over into being housing for their workforce to try and be able to, keep their employees gainfully housed. So there's a lot of nuances to this conversation that I know we're not going to solve in one study session. And we are going to be taking it in bites as far as city staff because there are so many different parts to this. But overall, if you could just if each alderman could take a moment and maybe give us your perception on what you're hearing in your districts about this really important matter. And remembering too that every department's going to be impacted by whatever way we go. We've got fire codes. Well, what should the requirements be? Should they be the same as regular housing? Some of these facilities are very old and don't have sprinkler systems in them. So is it feasible, practical, entirely necessary to require a building to be sprinkled or not? These are all these nuanced questions that invoke a lot of emotion, sometimes besides just the business answer to it. So at that, I'll stop preaching here, but just to let you know, we're very, very conscientious about introducing the idea of a moratorium because we know that can conjure up some negative feelings. But given the breadth of this issue and how many pieces there are, we're hopeful you'll consider that. Thank you.
Mayor, do you have any comments?
Why do I have to go first? I'm not
Okay,
even there.
we'll skip you. You're right. Cody has something. We'll let Cody go.
Mine's more of a question. So you mentioned there's properties, I guess like extended stays that aren't in compliance, and so the solution they've sought out is to instead convert to multifamily. So what's that process look like? And it seems like there's some kind of loophole there that's maybe being exploited. Can you go in a little more detail on that?
You totally summarized it, is that they're seeing this as a loophole to potentially get out of the trouble that they're currently facing by not being in compliance with the codes and licensing requirements. And so instead of just, closing their facility and not making money, they're seeing this as an opportunity to continue to earn revenue on the properties.
So my question then is, how do we differentiate extended stay lodging versus multifamily, and what are they having to do to convert that and get it to fit that new requirement?
That's what we're looking to get some guidance from you all on things that are important to you, because we don't have that.
Well, okay,
right now.
that's what so right now so somebody says I want to be multifamily, they can just say they're multifamily and all of a sudden.
That is correct.
So they just say it, they just say we're now this, and
I've got Nikki here. She's in planning, and she'll be able to answer that more directly.
I'll just jump in on that. The only distinction the planning code has is the amount of stay. So if you're over 30 days, that turns into more of a multifamily situation. If you're under 30 days, it's considered a nightly rental. So again, we don't have any distinction between extended stay, hotel, motel. And that's one of those things that, we need to consider defining.
So would a moratorium stop that to where right now, if you're a motel that has somebody there more than 30 days, you can call yourself multifamily, but you don't have to do anything different? This proposed moratorium, would it stop that loophole?
It would pause the conversion. So there would be a change of use that they would have to apply for with business licensing, and they would not be able to apply for that change of use from the extended stay to the multifamily development.
So there is a process right now. They have to apply for something which gets approved by your department?
So that would be, I believe the business, our finance department would approve the business license, and that gets routed to several different departments in the city for that process. And then it's the planning department, we're getting those plans for those conversions. And the biggest issue we have is anything in the entertainment district, we don't have a specific density requirement. Most of the, other areas that allow it, it's 12 to 24 dwelling units. But if we have an existing motel with over 300 units on 2 acres, they're exceeding density. And then we have to wonder, are we providing enough parking? Are we providing enough landscaping? Do we have all those accommodations for the people that are living there? So these are all different concerns that we really need to take into consideration.
So right now, I'm sorry to hog the time here, but so right now, if somebody has a motel and says, I want to convert to a multifamily, they apply for a business license, it's approved, it sounds like there's no,
The issue the planning department has is if they were to apply for the conversion, let's say in community commercial district, we have a density requirement. So planning would take a look, they'd look at the density and say, yes, you're okay, you're approved. But for those in the entertainment district, this is where we're given pause because we don't have that density. So we're not entirely sure
in other
how to
words,
handle
there's no
this.
way to deny it really, as it stands.
I believe so, yes.
Would the moratorium proposal stop that is when I'm,
That would put a hold to it.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chair, can we ask, or Mr. Mayor, is it okay if Chief Martin comes up to address a few things?
Yeah, go ahead, Chief Martin.
2 minutes. She is right on track with density and the zoning. The use group is a different story. The use group is a hotel or motel. That is what it is. And forgive me, Michael, is it R1, correct? If you want to go to an apartment, that's an R2. It's a use group change. There is not a business license required for an apartment complex. So what that has successfully been done in a couple other properties in town is they take typically 2 guest rooms and make it into, you got a sleeping area and a sitting area or a front room. So that is not just a zoning issue, but a use group from R1 to R2. It's a whole different game changer.
So,
Go ahead, no, you're good, go ahead.
so have we had, since we began this process, has anybody successfully changed over so far?
Not currently. We were
Okay.
kind of bringing this to you guys to make it relevant, to find out what direction you guys want to move. We get calls daily.
Got it. So, boy, it's an interesting discussion. I almost wish that Jonas Argus was here because he's made some comments about this in the past about really I'll just parrot his opinion here, that he doesn't feel that really need any residential within the entertainment district. Now, if you look at pictures going back to the 80s on the Strip, there's always been little hotels there, and they've existed for a while. I also know in what we've done in this new initiative, boy, it would be nice if we really did provide some of those incentives to tear down some of those dilapidated properties as opposed to them sitting empty for a long time and creating blight, as we've been discussing. I appreciate that you pulled that up, though, because I didn't have any clue there were that many lodging establishments on the 76th district. So I think there's a lot to discuss on this of where, what do we even want to exist on that corridor anyway? I've always found it to be a little bit fast and loose because since we're so seasonal, people they change it to extended stays and they go back to nightly rentals. I mean, so for instance, if they went through that process that we're concerned that they would go through, how could they easily switch back?
It would be a process. I don't think that would financially be the right decision for them, but that would be probably an option they had.
Understood. Yeah, I have a lot of questions, I have a lot of thoughts, but I guess I'll leave it at that as we begin this discussion, but interesting. It seems to me that the moratorium, although it's a little harsh, could stop some of the stuff that's happening right now.
Give us a little time to
Right.
get some more feedback and information. And I do feel like there are solutions to workforce housing that are close enough to that entertainment district.
Sure. That maybe the special use process could be implemented down the road, whereas this could be a stopgap kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I appreciate what Kathy said about the workforce issue with your employees. I don't know what the percentage is, but I know I have several employees that walk to work or they're on a Elevate Branson scooter to get to work. And I totally agree with tightening the belt and not letting this get even more out of hand. But if you tighten it too tight, then what does that do to the workforce? It's already hard to fill, so that's what. Can I ask you what you said about business license? When you had that slide up, you said something about 80-something of them operating. I was going to stop you earlier, but you was
That's
on a
okay.
roll.
I know, I was trying to stay under my time limit. So the map visual is, are you talking about the 75% of respondents reported the funds? Or are you talking about the map itself?
During the I thought I heard you say something about the amount of them that are operating without a,
Oh, yes, actually, yeah. This does not include those operating without business license or that are not in operation.
yeah, but what
So
did you?
there's more of these.
Yeah, what was that number?
I don't have that number, Clay, but I can get that
Oh,
number
I
to
thought
you.
you said specifically.
I will be happy
But there's a
to-
lot of them.
There is.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few that aren't licensed in that.
Yeah.
area. So you're not going to see those visuals on this map, but I can get that information to you.
Oh,
if you'd like
yeah,
it.
that's fine. Did you have something, Ruth? Oh,
So the
ahead,
fundamental
Chad.
question in front of you, right, is, so we have the 76 corridor. We know that we want to have as many people as possible with limited transportation to take the jobs along 76. So the question you have amongst yourselves is yes, of course, to Jonas's point, I think we definitely want to have, hotels and ticket generators along our 76 corridor. Got it. However, currently that exists, and which you'll see as you drive up 76s, a number of these hotel motels that were built in the 90s, right? And now they've seen their day. They haven't been invested upon. They're vacant. They're eyesores. They're blighted. That's the part of our community that we want to address through this initiative, right? Now, to the point about the lodging safety initiative, yes, we've been definitely cracking down in the sense of making sure that those types of businesses who don't have licenses, right? We're going through the compliance system process with them. They've identified this as a loophole. Great. But still, the ones that are currently vacant along 76, the question that we essentially want guidance on from tonight on is, should we move forward with, pursuing demolition on them? Should we pursue them to say you need to be within a hotel and that's it? Are we allowed then to, if it pencils, and I'm guessing it doesn't pencil currently, because otherwise those vacant and blighted buildings would be turned into housing or back into a motel. So it clearly doesn't pencil. So what we're trying to do is eliminate the blight that we find along 76. It might not be through the lodging. They might not become a hotel motel again because they're so significantly out of code, whether it's fire, et cetera. So they're probably not going to become a hotel. So then the question is what is an acceptable use for them? And what a better way to kill two birds with one stone of having studio apartments that are affordable, and you can define whatever affordable means, right, to Jonas's point, or you can continue to let them sit there, right, and they become blighted, and it's an eyesore along 76, let's be honest, right?
it's terrible.
It's horrible. So what we're trying to do through this is really determine what is the board's general guidance, right? Obviously, there's some part in our current code that doesn't allow or is silent per se on how to move this from an apartment unit. So we really want to be able to work through that issue. And again, our fundamental point is we want to take those blighted properties along 76 and possibly make them into housing. Obviously, our first choice, I believe, from what I've kind of heard through separate conversations, is they should be ticket generators or they should be hotels. It doesn't seem to pencil for those guys, right? So now the question we have is, now that it's blighted, now that it's so decrepit, a lot of these buildings, what's the best use for them? And that's how we get back to this housing and possibly moving them into apartment complexes. So my question to you, and this is what I think what we're trying to get to the bottom of tonight is, we want to close that. We want to address this type of, I don't want to call it a loophole, but a lapse in the code. And are you supportive if we start to receive applications through our planning and development department, we can move forward with allowing them to become a apartment building, right? Studio, one, two bedroom, whatever pencils for those things. If we don't pursue that, what I imagine seeing is those buildings will continue to stand until they either fall down or they get condemned or they remain vacant, which again is not a benefit to our 76 corridor. So that's where we're at kind of tonight, to give you an idea, if that helps clear things up as well.
Go ahead, Ruth.
Excuse me. Thank you very much for bringing this out for discussion. You did a great job with your presentation, really thorough. Two things that are our responsibility is to protect property rights and life safety issues. Those are huge. I believe that protection of our entertainment district, just like we are trying to protect our low-density residential, are extremely important. I know the word moratorium is not a loved word. However, there's so much more discussion that needs to take place with this. And there's a difference between the occupying under 30 days and over 30 days. And that's where the life safety comes in. I think we need to be mindful of this. Also, I believe we were just named at the state level, the entertainment district capital. And I think that we really need to protect our entertainment district. So I would be supportive of a moratorium because there's so much more that goes into this, with the huge one being the life safety issue. There's just not the protection when you build something to be occupied for under 30 days and then you make it longer than that. That's a tough and very expensive. Those are codes that are expensive and have to even reach. And if they're not being reached now, just with some of the things they need to fix. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
I will say it's probably one of the number one things that I get hit with. When I'm at the theater after shows and people find out that I'm an alderman, this and that, I mean, it's always the top conversation. What are y'all going to do about all these old hotels that are just hanging around here? It looks terrible. It's terrible. It's an eyesore. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure y'all all get it, but I get it so much, and on social media and face to face. I mean, it's like, it is the number one discussion I get as an elected official is, what are y'all going to do about these old hotels? It just looks terrible. So I'm glad we're talking about it and trying to find a solution. So thank you for that. Go ahead, Ralph.
Clay,
Yep. Yes, sir, Mayor.
I didn't mean to call Ralph. You want to call Ralph?
Well, how much time you have? Go ahead, Ralph.
Well, kind of been thinking about this, and you're right, Clay, like, people, I mean, it's almost a daily that once they find out, and, it's they ask. But, I think about this and, from the life safety standpoint that Ruth brought up, simply because, as Chief said, like, hotels are hotels. And, if we don't act accordingly, then, obviously, whatever this gap is or this loophole is, from my perspective, could severely be exploited. And to think about, like, some of the establishments that would do that are establishments that have been very non-compliant over a very long period of time. And I could only imagine, like, whatever it take for them to get that particular establishment to, let's just say, an apartment, why didn't they do that to continue to be an operating establishment as a hotel and compliant? Because costs are costs, no matter what. I mean, I don't know, I just think that if we don't do something, this is something that could overrun staff, which, it could put us in a situation where we're making decisions that could threaten that life safety issue down the road. And I think we have to, kind of, I won't say slow walk it, because we still want to kind of move at a pace that is expeditious, but at the same time, take into consideration, because, man, this last couple weeks I've gotten calls because we've been enforcing, the lodging issue about, oh, I'm trying to do the right thing, but, like, really, are you? Because, you shared photos with me, and I'm pointing to Norm there, shared photos of establishment that people had called me about, and I just walked in, and he just happened to print off, like, 30-something pictures of, like, code violations, and I'm like, even when they're trying, they're not doing the right thing. And so it's very hard that if we don't, kind of be expeditiously cautious about this, I think we have the ability to keep that 76 corridor, maintain its integrity, and still deal with the workforce issues without doing that. And as far as the blighted properties, I mean, if they're going to not maintain or do something constructive with it, then maybe it is time for it to go. I mean, it's a hard decision, but at the same time, it's what's looking forward to the future of what we're going to create here in Branson. So,
Thank you, Ralph.
Mayor, would you like to talk now?
Yes, please. Amanda, that was a great presentation. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Now, I really want to compliment Kathy and Alex for bringing this up. This is big issue in our community. Obviously, there's been a lot of focus on resolving our affordable workforce housing. But something else we need to throw in here is the 76 CID board, they have concerns that they have a long-term plan for improving the 76 entertainment district. And the more of these motels that change over to apartments, the less revenue we're going to have to put back into the 76 approval. Right, lodging pays city tax and tourism tax, and the 1% CID tax. So any of those properties converted to apartments would not be contributing to improvements along 76. There are so many big tentacles to this. I agree with Ruth. I don't think there's an elected official who likes the word moratorium. But at this stage, if we don't do a moratorium and some of these units start converting and going through our process and getting approvals, because that's what the code says, then we're left with possibly a bigger long-term problem.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, go ahead.
So, Alex, to what you said, here's my only issue. To me, an extended stay hotel is an apartment complex. And
There is no such thing as extended stay.
right,
State code.
right. So that's the rub, right? It's like that's the loophole. Those are apartments, and if they would commit to being an apartment, then maybe we could fix some of those ideas of them not being able to have hot plates and some of the things that we get hit with as well. You know, so yeah, it's a bunch of loopholes. It seems to me.
I'd like to, Chief, would you mind giving us your opinion on like, kind of like what Marshall just touched on with when they're converting these things, and what are the dangers and what are the majority of the calls when you get like, I noticed like that one property had 174 calls. I mean, what kind of calls are we talking? Electrical problems? Are we talking, what are you seeing there?
Drugged, diabetic, domestic, drunk. What's the fifth one, Chief? There's about 5 Ds that we deal with all the time. Disturbances. I'm probably going to go down that rabbit trail first. Let me back up a little bit and just support what Alex just said. You have a lodging license in the state health code for permanent guests. You were alluding to that, Ruth, about less than 31 days. That's your standard guest that's coming here for vacation. Or greater than 31 days, it might be a contractor that's coming here to do an infill at one of our malls, for example. And those people are allowed to, by contract, by our city ordinance, not do the tourism tax. You're still generating revenue. You're still having housing to do that. So that works very well. The term extended stay, as Alex referred to, is not a legal term in the lodging code at all. So we've just morphed into this. So when you take an older property, it's just not being rented, it's not getting good Yelp reviews, it's not someplace you really want to go to take your family to, we've turned into extended stay, and therefore, I would dare say, I'm looking at the police chief, we both have increased call volumes to those properties. So then you look at the alternative of could we convert them, and there's been some successful properties that have done that have taken 2 guest rooms to make 1, or make a 3-bedroom, or a 2-bedroom out of that, but it does take an investment as a business to do that. So you either reinvest, I like to use Gail Meyer's property, the Center Point Inn, built in 1976, across from your property, and it still looks good today. They reinvest in the landscaping and the parking lot and the roofs and the guest rooms. So you can do that with an older property, or you've let it fail. Well, guess where most of our staff time is? With Norm and my inspectors and the building inspectors. We're spending an awful lot of staff time for reoccurring inspection after inspection after inspection for noncompliance. That's a health and safety issue. Now you're talking the bigger picture of what do you want with your entertainment district, as Alex was referring to in the city administrator. Do you want to have that kind of housing available, do it right, do it to some kind of standard, or do you want to dilapidate? We've seen some properties tear down in Branson because it's a tax advantage at the county level to be able to do that. So that's why this is before you today. I'm excited to hear it. Her presentation was spot on to be able to talk about, give us time to work on it and bring back to you some great ideas to move forward in progress for that kind of housing.
So when the comment is said that there's no such thing as an extended stay, so all those places that are extended stays, those are classified as hotels still?
They are still technically a lodging establishment. They should have a lodging license. Now, there are places like the Residence Inn, for example. They have standard guest rooms, and they have guest rooms that have a little sitting area or a little two-burner stove designed to stay there for 30, 40, 60 days if you're, say, a contractor here or a businessman for some reason. So that can be done, and that's where that contract comes into play, where you don't have to pay the lodging tax by our city licensing agreements.
So without opening a can of worms here, are there gray areas of legality as far as an extended stay? Is that what you're telling me?
It just has come about. How about that for an answer?
Say it again?
It's just come about. It's a model that I can't rent it. I'm just going to be bold and say I'm not getting good Yelp reviews or whatever, so let's just let people stay here for affordable housing. But you're doing, in previous aldermen had talked about there's apartments, but yeah, you have to have first month's rent and cable bills and electricity, and so you can come into this guest room and have one fee, and you've got maybe internet and cable and electricity provided, so you don't have to have the down payments or the deposits or all those things to get started. So you see that opportunity, but it's just not a legal term. And background checks is a big one. I'm going to share with you that we have one property within walking distance of the Missouri State Building for probation and parole. There's a reason that that's close and available for services, to be able to walk to your theater to work. So that's your question today is, where do you want it, just on the outskirts? Do you want it in the entertainment district? That's what these two have brought forward.
Well, and here's the deal. Green Mountain Drive has got to be a part of this discussion because it's within the corridor essentially, but it's not right on the strip. So, I mean, that, as we move forward, I think that's got to be part of what we talk about. You know, Roark Valley Road, all those that are arteries on the strip, but maybe not seen right as you drive down the iconic Highway 76, we got to utilize those, so.
And your planning department's brought forward density as a topic. You could, I'm getting in your weeds a little bit, but that density could be addressed by how many guest rooms you have per. So if there's a 36-unit motel, but you're really only doing 12 units because you're doing 2 and 3 bedroom. Am I right on that? I don't want to cross the line too far, but these are ways to work on your density is what I'm trying to say. So.
Thank you, Chief. Go ahead.
You good? All right, we're good. Any more questions?
Any more questions up here? Kathy, yeah.
Thank you. Norm, are you prepared to give a little bit of background on some of the things that you're seeing in some of these properties? I think for the good of the order, it'd be good for people to hear from you.
Good evening. So I have served in the community for the last approximately 4 years, code enforcement, and now is the building safety supervisor. And I concur with what has been said tonight. We find a significant number of life safety issues, and it is primarily in the older stock that would maybe not be as attractive to a family or guests that are coming into the community to be with us, but they are still being utilized. And so it is not uncommon to find property owners that will kind of shift their model, still create revenue, and these units are usually, their electrical hazards are very common, and what you would need to operate a hotel room is much different from what you need to operate an apartment. So cooking equipment is introduced. Overloaded circuits are the result. Electrical fires are not uncommon, or cooking fires. It also creates issues with other. It's kind of like a chain of events that happens that makes these properties unsafe. And so from my perspective, having served in fire service for years and in this current position, I thank the board for their commitment to this lodging safety initiative. It is making a huge difference. And it doesn't happen overnight, but we're working very hard to work with the community and help bring folks up to speed and give them opportunities to do the right thing. But I think the presentation tonight was on point as far as, one of the options available, and we're committed to bringing back good recommendations to the board to consider.
Thank you, Norm. Anybody else? Cody? Kathy?
Thank you. So you've heard from several of us here tonight, and for everyone listening and for the public in particular, I want to stress that when Ruth touched on the importance of respecting property rights, that's always at the front of our minds as well. And we have to remember that these properties we're talking about are owned by someone. And so when you start talking about dilapidated buildings, removing those buildings, that conjures up all kinds of lather as well on public policy decisions. But I want you all to know that we are very committed to being respectful of those property rights, and for also trying to balance the need that we do have for workforce housing, where it might make sense, like Marshall, you said, the Roark Valley, Green Mountain Drive, those areas, maybe it makes more sense to allow those types of conversions to happen in those areas versus right on the strip per se. Or maybe a special use permit could be required. I'm tossing things out here. If it's on the strip, that it goes before the Plan Commission and it has public hearings and people can weigh in on whether, because maybe it's practical. Maybe there's a motel that's right next door to an attraction that really needs housing for their workers, and they want to be able to convert it and do it the right way. Is there an opportunity to develop a process in order to allow that? So these are all things that'll be on the table, and I encourage listeners and the public, as well as all of you, of course, to submit your ideas to us as soon as possible as we start to work through these potential options. But the one other thing I wanted to say that hasn't been said, and I probably should be the one to say it, is some of these proprietors that are abusing the current system. And before our efforts on the Lodging Safety Initiative, these are predatory operators. There isn't a kinder word for that. These people are preying on the disadvantaged in our community. They're financially disadvantaged and maybe have other things that are struggles in their lives, and they're not real affordable, because while they don't have to come up with a big giant down payment and a credit check and a background check, et cetera, and that's how they get their people into those establishments, they're very expensive on top of it. And unfortunately, we've had some proprietors who take their money and then kick them out 3 days later for something that happens and they don't get their money back. And this causes a stir for folks here at City Hall, whether it's police or fire or anybody else that they come in to complain to. So we have got to stop allowing bad operators to continue to prey on Branson residents. And that was our motivation behind the Safe Lodging Initiative, and it's right there front and center on this initiative as well. It's wrong. And not to mention how it impacts the city as a whole as far as beautification efforts and tax generations, and that's all very important, but so is this. And I just wanted to let you know that we're aware, and we're looking to clean it up. So thank you.
100%. Thank you for saying that. And you absolutely nailed it. Because there are a few good ones, but there's some out there that are 100%. Again, I have people that work for me that live in some of these establishments, and we've had to get involved to help them out a few times. And it's sad, really. It really is. Marshall?
And let's just be clear, from my perspective as an alderman, and Kathy was alluding to this, but you're allowed to have an ugly property. We're not, as the city, going to come in eminent domain. That's not what we're talking about. I like the word assistant, but what you're not allowed to do is have an unsafe property, right? And to prey on people, as you said. But what I'm talking about is that term assistance. When we, not going in and demolishing somebody's property, but assisting them if they want to go down that route, because we've seen that example. There are people that the tax rate's lower if you just get rid of, So, yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, Kathy. And I want to, because a lot of times you look for direction in this, and as one alderman, I think the moratorium thing makes sense for now. So it could be a wise decision until we develop a better strategy moving forward. So,
Mayor, do you have anything before we close?
Well, I was just going to say that, yeah, there's, I believe this board, we want no budging on the life safety issues, right? That's just a hard line in the sand. And because of all the issues, Kathy's looking for direction, and what I'm hearing is a moratorium. Would Amanda say she could bring it up on the next board meeting, if I understood that right? To vote on, is that right, Kathy?
That's correct.
So Clay, if your board feels that, at least for now, that's the direction we want to go, and we need to tackle all these issues, but I support a moratorium also.
Yes, sir. All right. Are we good? Hey, thank you again, Kathy, Alex, for bringing this up, and Chief, thank you and thank you for your presentation. That was fantastic.
Thank you for your time tonight.
All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn study session.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. The result of the vote is we are adjourned.